The school district unveils its next move in addressing the grade fixing controversy. Good evening. This is CTV News for Tuesday, December 19th. I'm Patricia Vallone.
And I'm Denise Douglas. That story shortly. But first, a massive fire in Suitland damages 2 apartment buildings in Suitland. Investigators say as many as 20 families were displaced when a fire tore through the roof and attic of a building at the Carriage Hill Apartments. Flames then jumped to an adjacent building, setting it on fire. There were also a number of injuries. 5 were treated on the scene for smoke inhalation. 3 others were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. A firefighter was also hurt but was able to return to duty.
On top of the building, on the top floor up there. And so then it just started rising and rising, and people were coming out and, letting everybody know what was happening and all.
I was in the house and the building alarm went off. When I got myself together, came outside, I looked to my left and I seen that whole building was engulfed in flame. Roof completely gone. Thousands of fire trucks over there fighting that fire. It's crazy. Smoke everywhere. Water lines all in the streets, so we're all trapped over there. We can't go anywhere.
The cause of that fire is still under investigation.
Well, the Prince George's school system plans to address the grade audit controversy in tonight's Board of Education meeting in Upper Marlboro. The move comes on the heels of last week's meeting between Governor Larry Hogan and the local NAACP. Now, Hogan and the civil rights organization accused the school system of not responding to the report in a timely manner. CEO Dr. Kevin Maxwell tells CTV News that his administration will outline in detail how it plans to address all of the audit's recommendations, including changes to the absentee system and certifying graduation requirements.
The audit company made, and we have begun to do things like we've restricted the number of grade managers. We've worked to separate the responsibilities from administration, counseling, and grade managers. We've worked to streamline the forms. The company found a couple of different forms, and so some of what we heard in the media and in the concerns about some of them didn't have teacher signatures and some did. Well, some of the forms that they were using were the old forms that didn't require a teacher signature, and so that again created the confusion. We're working on doing some revisions of the policies over the next few months. We've begun training of grade managers, of counselors, of principals to make sure everybody understands about grade certification. We're working to increase academic integrity. The company talked about moving to a system with technology where we can monitor the number of grade changes and do that in an ongoing way. We didn't have that function on our system before that, but we're working to implement that, and so that is underway. We're also going to do a request for proposals in January for a follow-up audit to make sure it's done. And in the meantime, we have teams of people that are going into schools to check and see how things are doing manually before we get all the technology and the follow-up audits and things in line. So we're making sure that our kids don't fall behind.
And tonight's special school board meeting will begin at 7 p.m. at the Sasser Administration Building in Upper Marlboro. Well, lawmakers from Anne Arundel and Prince George's counties are saying, not in my backyard. 10 legislators have written to Maryland Transportation Secretary Pete Ron, urging the state to drop its proposed maglev route for Amtrak's Penn Line corridor. The letter says that the routes would disrupt neighborhoods with little to no value for local residents. It also urges the Department of Transportation to identify and mitigate any community impacts of underground routes.
The city of Bowie is holding a special election today. Residents will now decide whether to recall Councilmember Diane Polangen. The group Bowie Citizens for Accountable Government submitted a petition containing more than 3,000 signatures. Much of the anger stems from Polangen's vote in favor of building apartments behind the new Marketplace Shopping Center. CTV's Sonia Srivatsa explains.
That's right, we're here at the Ken Hill Center, one of the 2 locations where District 2 residents can come out and vote. Now, we've talked to a lot of the voters that are coming in, and some are angry that taxpayer money is being spent on this special elections, while others are glad that lawmakers are being held accountable. On this cold December day, the signs are out, the crowds trickling in, and Councilwoman Diane Palangan is once again fighting for her job.
The things they're saying about me is very hurtful.
Fiona Moody is with the group Bowie Citizens for Accountable Government, and they collected 3,500 signatures along with a petition to the city asking for a recall election for Palangan. So why do they want her out? Most of the anger stems from her voting in favor of building apartments behind the new Marketplace shopping center.
Well, what you have is you have residents who literally are going to have 20 feet from the back of their property line have an apartment complex in their backyard, along with people looking into their backyards with overlooking balconies, a swimming pool, a parking garage right in their backyard, and completely affects their way of life.
This was changed from commercial shopping center to mixed use, multifamily housing in 2006, before I was on the council. I, with my vote, was following the law that says you can have apartments there. They had been approved by the county for 488 apartments, 5-story building. I worked them down to 225 apartments, 3-story building, 25% that has to be senior housing.
There are passionate opinions on both sides. We were interrupted during our interview by this supporter.
Good luck, Diane. You got you all the years of service for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
While another resident had this to say.
I'm wondering how much money you got for voting yes.
Palangan supporters say some of the information being passed around is misleading. For example, some of the apartments will be used for Section 8 housing.
I suspect that there's somebody who's trying to gain a political seat for themselves.
The apartment buildings were not supposed to be a part of the Bowie landscape. It started out as a bedroom community, basically, with people commuting into D.C., but now it's much more.
Robert and Kathleen Patrick support Palangan and say the apartments are a good idea.
You know, people want to live where they shop. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is.
Seniors, they're looking for living in a smaller abode. They live in these large houses. They're looking for like senior housing, and some of that I understand is going to be used for that. So it's addressing a need that other parts of the community have been asking for.
Now, District 2 in Bowie has about 5,000 registered voters, and the 2 polling places will remain open until 8 p.m. tonight to accommodate all of them here. In Bowie, I'm Sonia Shrivastava. Back to you.
Thank you, Sonia. If voters decide that she should give up her seat, the city will hold a separate election in the next 2 months.
Well, as expected, Republicans in the House of Representatives passed the massive tax reform bill. The vote came down 227 to 203. 12 Republicans voted against it. No Democrats did, though, however. And the measure reserves massive and permanent cuts to corporations and the wealthiest Americans. Nearly all Americans will see a minor cut in their taxes next year, but those cuts will expire in a decade. The reform measure will also leave about 13 million people without health care. The Senate is expected to vote and pass the bill overnight, and it will then go to President Trump's desk for his signature.
A major victory for supporters of the Purple Line. A federal judge has ruled that Maryland officials can move forward with construction of it. And arguing against the rail line, opponents have said that it would decrease metro ridership and negatively impact the environment. But Judge Judith Rogers reversed a 2016 decision, saying that it would not hurt the environment. The Purple Line runs 16 miles from New Carrollton to Bethesda.